Hello, everyone, and welcome along to your Wednesday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett, and I'm your host this evening. Ross kindly bowed out of being a host because he said he was too busy painting to do any research for tonight's podcast. So we'll see how his opinions go. But we're joined by Ross and we're joined by JB tonight as we start to look forward to what is a huge game for Rangers in the last 16 of the Europa League as we take on Benfica following last week's 2-2 draw in Lisbon. Let's start with yourself, JB. You were actually over in Lisbon last week. You were sending us loads of pictures and videos of the away end and things like that. Can you just tell us a bit about it and how much fun it was and just your experience of the game?
Yeah, from what I remember, it was good. Yeah, no, it was a long day. I know I've shared with a few of you already, but as you know, once the draw gets done, all the prices shoot up. So it was almost the case of, right, how can I get over here at a decent price? So I had to fly via Paris. So it was a 5 a.m. start on the Thursday, and then change it 2 hours in Paris, and then fly over to Lisbon, and then into as you say, into the game. Real friendly fans. It's come to kind of expect that in Portugal now. The police are all dressed as Robocops, so that's a little bit off-putting. But in terms of the fans, obviously I've done Braga a couple of times, Porto a couple of times, so Benfica was nice to finish off. And then, into the ground. Obviously the team came through, as you'd expect. There's obviously not a lot of options out there. I think the only decision for me was whether Sterling was in the midfield three. But obviously he got deployed outright, which turned out to be the right thing. And then, there was a light show before the match, which was a wee bit different to what we're used to pre-match. So it was a 15-minute light show followed by the Eagle. So that was good. And then into the game.
15 minutes seems excessive.
Yeah, it was a bit heavy. Like it was good for the first minute, but then after that, you're a bit like, right, okay, you've got fancy lights. So I'm sure we'd all love to have disco lights, wouldn't we? But there you go. And then obviously the game, and I thought we'd done really well. I thought we performed well all over the pitch. You could tell at the start there's a real lack of what my dad would used to say, partnerships on the pitch. You can almost see everyone's just trying to do their own thing a little bit, and everyone's just trying to keep shape as opposed to 1-2s and stuff. It was a bit of a slow start, but then once we scored, you seen the confidence just kind of go in the players. They equalised, the heads didn't drop, and then obviously then 2-1, 2-2. I did worry just before they scored. You could see the players were blown. But no, to get out of that with a 2-2 draw, and lucky not to win it potentially at the end as well. So looking forward to tomorrow. I think not a lot. Obviously, there's plenty there in terms of their ability, but we just got to hope that the extra man, which is the fans, can do the business for us tomorrow, get off to a flying start and see how we go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty to cover tonight. We've got the comments from Philippe Clement in the press conference. We've got the discussions about the atmosphere. We've got plenty to talk about the team and the squad and potential starting lineups. Return of Todd Cantwell potentially as well, which is exciting. But Ross, how are you feeling heading to tomorrow night, and what is a bit of a strange one because it's a 5:45 p.m. kickoff?
Yeah, that is a bit of a strange one. I actually forgot about that till yesterday, to be honest with you. So, yeah, strange time, but I suppose we've not came into that yet, have we? We've not run into this situation. There's been plenty of teams throughout Europe that have the early kickoff. So we've been lucky. We've been fortunate in that one. So I suppose this is our turn. I'm actually really positive. I was on the podcast last Wednesday previewing the game. I said it would be a 2-2 draw. I'm just going to throw that in there that I got that prediction bang on. I think that's maybe the first one this season. So that's obviously going to be the last one most likely as well. So yeah, I'm really positive for tomorrow. Actually, I think Rangers performed really, really well over there. I think they were really, really brave when they had possession of the ball. I think JB's right. Maybe the first 5-10 minutes they were a bit shaky. Benfica came out, as you would expect in a tie like this, to put you under pressure. But I thought they handled it well. I thought the whole night they defended really, really well. 2 centre-backs were great. And we deserved our goal at the time we got it. The first one, of course, we can go back and talk about the penalty, whether it is, whether it's not. I don't really know what's going on with the handball really anymore, to be honest with you. So I just accept it once it's given. But again, that determination, the drive in the team at the moment, it's a great run from Dujon Sterling. You go back ahead so quickly, and we're unfortunate to lose the second goal in the second half from a Cora Golson mistake. But I just thought overall it was a great performance, really, really brave, and exactly what you want in Europe. I think we've seen over the years with this Rangers team that in a way that the pressure comes off them a little bit in Europe. You know, you play domestic football every single week. You must win every single week. And listen, the expectations that Rangers are always going to be, you want to win every single game of football. But Europe, you understand, you're a wee bit realistic. You're playing against top sides. And they just go out and play without any pressure. And you always seem to get a good performance from them. So that's really, really encouraging. What I would say from the other side with Benfica, I think it's clear they have a lot of good quality individual players. I'm not convinced of them as a team at the moment. I think you can see why they're under a lot of pressure with their manager. They didn't look great as a side. They just relied on, on a penalty and their own goal to get them through. Of course, there was quality throughout the game. They missed a good couple of chances. Jack Butland keeps them in it at points, but it's not the best European side we've came across. That might come back to bite me tomorrow, right? So don't listen to this after the morning. Based on that performance last week and what I've seen from Benfica, I'm really encouraged by that, and I think Rangers can do the business tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm loving all this positivity here as we head into this game tomorrow. I think a lot of us will have watched Arsenal take on Porto last night and see how good that performance was from Porto. And it's important to remember and just put into context that Benfica are 6 points ahead of Porto in that league as well. So they're absolutely no mugs, and I think we saw that last week in the performance. JB, I'm going to come to you first on this one because Ross might take up the full podcast talking about it. But Philippe Clement in his press conference today, and we saw a little bit on Sky Sports News as well, in terms of Todd Cantwell being back in full training. How big is that news for us, especially at this stage, given the level of injuries we have to the squad?
Yeah, he was one. I was thinking about this last week where me and Gary, who had travelled with, were kind of saying, who would you bring on now out of all the players that were out? And it was either Cantwell or Sima. You just needed somebody last week, certainly around 20 minutes to go, that was just going to be brave, just drop a shoulder, just to try and open the game up a little bit. I think he could be crucial tomorrow. Whether he starts, I'm not too sure. I think he might just wait to see kind of how the game pans out. You might find that we might look tomorrow to just try and keep it tight. And then obviously having someone like Cantwell coming off the bench, you can put him in 3 or 4 different positions, depending on where the manager sees the need for him. I think that's one of the things we've learned under Clement since he's been in. He'll put players into positions where he thinks they're going to fit in best. So it might be a case of we might see Cantwell coming off the left, off the right, centrally. So he's a fantastic option to have, and the quality that he brings. And he'll be looking to prove a point as well. He knows there's going to be loads of eyes on tomorrow. I was actually thinking about him today. When you see Jack Butland getting called up, it's almost a bit of a sign of, you know what, it mightn't be a graveyard for players coming up here anymore. A chance to re-platform yourself. Now, whether he gets a Rangers call up whilst playing in Scotland is probably another conversation. But we do know that we need to go down this transfer model of bringing players in cheap and selling them big. Now, if we can get Cantwell back to the form he was in just before things went a bit way with Norwich, then he could spark again and look to kick on. So yeah, all eyes on him. But yeah, a very welcome addition back.
Absolutely, and we'll come in to talk about Jack Butland probably more towards the end of the podcast, and the fact that he looks likely to get that call up for the England squad for the upcoming international break. Ross, I'm going to set you loose on this one a little bit, but before I do, I'll read Philippe Clement's comments from his press conference today. He says Todd Cantwell is ready to play a number of minutes, as discussed with the medical staff, clearly not ready for 90 minutes. I wonder, JB said he's not sure if he's going to start or not. That probably suggests to me that he probably isn't. He'll probably be our last 20 minutes maybe kind of person. Firstly, what's your thoughts on the fact that, or how big an impact Todd Cantwell could make coming back into the team in a game like tomorrow night? And then what's your, as a sort of follow-up, I guess, what's your thoughts on how much emphasis Philippe Clement is putting on every time a player comes back from injury, that he's talking to the medical staff about how many minutes they can have, and I think that's just being realistic for fans' expectations?
Well, I'll start with that first. I think it's really refreshing to hear, to be honest with you, because the injury crisis we have had over the last couple of years is just not sustainable. You know, the number of players we have on, you know, high salaries, high wages sitting in the stands is just not what you want as a football club, and we have to try and rectify that. And clearly the managers came in initially and he's felt that that's not something he wants to be working with. You can sense the frustration every time Philippe Clement talks about it. It was the same after Hibs at the weekend. You could sense his frustration again with the injuries. I think he referred back to pre-season. I think we probably weren't prepared for this season in terms of a physical aspect. So I think it is good for him to be transparent with the fans and be honest and say, look, players coming back, but he's not going to just come in and smash it straight away, right? We're going to bleed him back into the team, and I think that is good, and it lets fans kind of settle a little bit. In terms of Todd Cantwell, his impact overall tomorrow and Sunday going to be huge. Having Todd Cantwell back, I was slightly encouraged by the team against Hibs at the weekend that he picked the same 11. It made me think there was bodies coming back, and I did think that Todd Cantwell would be back for this one. So it's great to see. In terms of his impact in this team, if he is fit enough to play in terms of start, I would start him, to be honest with you. I know that puts up for debate where he plays. In terms of Tom Lawrence, he's been very good, but I just think Todd Cantwell gives us that wee bit something different in the final third. Very creative. I think he's very difficult to mark, and I think for Benfica, in terms of them defensively, they didn't look great. So Todd Cantwell and around their back four, I think, would make a difference. So yeah, overall, I think he's going to be huge for us. I don't need to go on about how good Todd Cantwell is. I've done it enough times in this podcast, Craig. So I'm buzzing to see him back tomorrow. And if I was Philippe Coman in his position and Todd Cantwell was ready to play, I would be starting him tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting in terms of, and it's one of those things. I guess it's the balance between do you start him knowing that he's only going to play 60 minutes, and that's all you're going to get from him. If he can do that, he's only been out a couple of weeks, so maybe that's the case. But you also don't want to lose him for future games. And as you say, Dundee at the weekend is as important as ever, given that we're competing in all three competitions still. So that's as important as ever. I think it's interesting as well in the context of, I guess, the injuries that came out of the Hibs game that you mentioned, Ross, as well. Updates from the press conference: Dujon Sterling isn't going to be in the squad. Does seem to be a minor issue, which I think is a bit of a relief. You're always concerned when a player sort of pulls up like that with the hamstring issue. He's been a surprise package this year, I guess, for us. Not one that we saw coming, and he's played in so many different positions. That goal last week against Benfica, the way he ghosted in at the back post just to slide the ball in, was tremendous. He was the only one awake and aware of the potential of that, and that was so impressive for me. But he'll miss tomorrow night against Benfica. Clement said he won't take the risk. He'll assess him ahead of the weekend. I saw Ross McCausland on the Sky Sports News coverage with it looked like a bit of a brace, I guess, so around his calf, sort of knee kind of area. So, but it was encouraging to see him on the park. JB, I guess what that does provide us with, though, is a real width issue. I know we had Rabi Matondo come on towards the end of the game at the weekend, but that seemed to be more of a needs must than a he's fit and ready to go kind of thing. Are you concerned about that heading in tomorrow, considering that tends to be where we are most dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't mention Scott Wright was in the training videos either. You've kept that
tried to forget that.
I don't know if we're keeping that as a secret package for Benfica, but yeah, it is a massive concern. I think only because we've seen so much benefit at the start since Clement's come in. We've seen so much positivity coming in from the wide areas, albeit it's been in fits and starts. There's been kind of nobody consistent coming off the right. But obviously for us to lose Cortez and Sima, I mean, Sima was flying. We thought, right, we've got a diamond here, certainly at the end of the season. And then obviously we get the bad news, and then Cortez comes in. You think, right, he stepped into the shoes, we go again. And then McCausland had a wee bit of a bit of a purple patch when he first come in, but it's kind of gone off the boil a little bit. And Scott Wright's been doing what Scott Wright's been doing for the last few years. So obviously Matondo's can potentially give us an option. He can give us that wide option if we need it. Again, feels more of a late on type of wide option as opposed to going in from the start. You just might find he might just look to keep things quite compact to start with. And just hope that a workman-like performance and the Ibrox crowd might actually just give us that wee bit of extra of a push. To be honest, I haven't thought too much about who's actually going to start on that wide right, because you just don't know what options that you're going to have until everybody rocks up. But I think the fact that Silva's give us that width option has been a bit of an unforeseen bonus, which has been good. But he might start with Matondo, to be fair, and then Matondo down the right and Silva down the left, and then with Lawrence off your front man, or obviously off Big Cyril. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But yeah, the lack of width is a worry, especially for the fact that Clement doesn't seem to want to rely on his width being from the fullbacks. We know the fullbacks can get forward, But Tavernier and Yilmaz, I think it's been very clear for all to see. They're defenders first. And anything that we do, if they're going to be building, they're going to be involved from the back. I can't foresee too many Yilmaz crosses for Tavernier at the back post, which we've seen in previous years and we've seen successfully in Europe. I think we seem a lot more drilled and a lot more organised now. So, but again, just have to wait and see. My only concern for tomorrow is just they were very good at keeping the ball last week. Every single one of them was unbelievably comfortable. Especially what was his name? João Neves. He was without exaggerating, in me 20 odd years of watching football, 30 odd years maybe. It's one of the best performances I've ever seen on a football pitch live. He was absolute Rolls Royce. Some of his movement and the amount of clever little passes he was doing, he was just fantastic. He'll go on. He'll be £100 million player in the summer, absolutely no doubt. So, yeah, let's see how we go. But yeah, as you say, the width is going to be something we're just going to need to get over, as we've had to over the last few months.
We started the podcast off so positively, and then you've just brought up João Neves and how good he is, and he's going to be £100 million player, and we're just slowly keeping him down.
Big John will launch him after 5 minutes. We'll be all right.
I think I agree with you actually in terms of the width from the fullbacks. It's something that's been very noticeable since Philippe Clement has come in. They're not quite pushing forward as much as they used to. We're not quite as cavalier in attack from those areas, and we've seen the benefits of it in terms of the defensive record and the number of clean sheets we've had, and the low number of goals that we have conceded over the piece. So we've definitely seen the benefits of that, but it does put more emphasis on the wide players. But that's also why players like Cortez will have been brought in January with the expectation that he'll be able to offer us the width. We saw some of what he has to offer in the couple of games he played, and I think he obviously wouldn't have been able to play this game anyway because he wasn't added to the squad. But it just shows you some of the difficulties we're facing, just even with squad selection and things like that at this moment in time. For that to be the case, Ross, you and I guess it was during Rabbi Matondo's purple patch at the start of the season, but you and I were in the gantry for the PSV game, the Champions League qualifier at Ibrox, and Rabbi Matondo was a delight to watch that night. He ripped PSV apart at times, and his finishing was great. Do you expect Matondo to come in more from the start out of necessity, or do you reckon, like JB said, he'll be more of a coming in from the last 20 minutes or so with a bit of pace?
I think I'm with JB in this one. I think he'll be an impact sub tomorrow night. I think the last 15-20, I would expect Matondo to come in. I don't think you're going to see many surprises tomorrow with the lineup. I think it's going to be the same again, to be honest with you, but I think McCausland will come in on that right-hand side. I might have ruined the end of the podcast here, Craig, when you asked for a lineup. I apologise.
Right. No one will remember, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Remember,
but that's it. I just think... JB's right. We're very limited at the moment in terms of options, right? And it looks like Philippe Clement is just going into every game. He's not really looking at the one after. He's just going, what's my best team to win this game? Like, what options do I have? And that's it. You've just got to, what comes from tomorrow night in terms of maybe picking up other knots or players, you're just going to have to deal with that coming into Sunday. The way I look at this and the game at the weekend is the team just need to empty the tank, right? You've got 2 games. You just need to empty the tank to get into the international break. I'd imagine that international break is going to have, there's going to be quite a few days off for this team, both from a physical aspect, but also a mental aspect. It's been a really tough run of fixtures for Rangers since they came back from the winter break. It's important to get a break. So I think that's where the message is going to be all week, and I think that's the way he's going to approach the squads. You know, this is the options he has, and this is what he's going to go with. And I think if you look at it any other normal week, I was going to say normal week for Rangers, there's always injuries with Rangers, but you get what I mean, right? You have a fully fit squad. McCausland would be nowhere near it tomorrow in terms of the knocks he's picked up the last 2 games, but that is just where we are. He's going to have to probably make an appearance. So I'm actually not as worried about the wide options as maybe I should be. I understand we have a lot of injuries, but I think if you play a McCausland on the right-hand side and you play a Fabio Silva on the left, who has been flying off the left, as much as I still believe he probably is better as a striker, I can't argue of how good he's been off that left-hand side. I think that's a good 2 options to start the game. Then you've got a Scott Wright and a Rabbi Matondo to come off the bench. I know it's not great options, of course it's not, but I just think for this game tomorrow, it's maybe not going to come down to the individual quality. I think what JB said there, it's going to be just one of those gritty performances. Really make it difficult for Benfica. Don't let them come here. Don't let them settle on the ball. And I think you're just going to try and get as much energy out of the team tomorrow night as possible. And we've seen that in the games that we played in that Europa League run a couple of years ago. Sometimes we didn't play scintillating football. We didn't in that run, but it was effective. And we used the atmosphere of Ibrox to get us through these ties, and that's exactly what I'm expecting tomorrow. So yeah, of course, injury problems, we've had them all season, but I'm not any more worried about tomorrow night than I have been in other games, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about the atmosphere in a little bit. Back to Philippe Clement, he said, we will need to be efficient. The game will be decided in the small details. As you saw in Lisbon, we will not park the bus. Ross, sticking with you, where are the small details, do you think, having watched that game last week, having seen a bit of Benfica, where are the small details that Philippe Clement is talking about where the game will be won and lost?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. I think Benfica showed defensively they're not great, to be honest with you. It's maybe a bit harsh, right? But I always look at Nicolas Otamendi as a centre-back. He's wild. He's always been wild, regardless of the level he's played at. I think you've seen that again last week with his positioning. He was pulled out several times last week. I think we can really get at them, especially in the full-back areas as well. I actually can't say his name. It's Arsenes on the left-hand side, I think it was. He actually looked decent on the ball, but again, off it, I thought you could get some joy. So I think the small detail is going to come down to probably how can Rangers do their best to maybe not let Benfica get prolonged periods of possession that JB picked on earlier. They are really good at keeping the ball. That João Neves in midfield, being 19, he looks like a seasoned pro. Do you know what I mean? He looks like someone that's played for about 10 years at the top level. So he's going to be someone we're going to have to focus on. So I think not maybe letting them get in a period of prolonged possession, but something Philippe Clement always talks about in his team is he wants Rangers to be set up really well off the ball in terms of when the ball turns over. And I think that's going to be really important tomorrow night because you've seen last week Benfica were willing to break at pace every single time they got it. And I think at Ibrox, you don't really want that to happen. You want the crowd to stay with you as long as possible. So I think that's the small details for me. You've got to be cautious of Benfica's threat on the break, but at the same time, that they can be got at. So we've seen it last week. We've seen it with their form over the last maybe month or two as well. They concede goals. And I think the way we've got to look at it, regardless of the injury problems, is that we can make the difference up top. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot more small details than that, Craig, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Yeah.
And Rangers finding the back of the net is also helpful. But JB, I seen you nodding along quite a bit there to what Ross was saying. Where do you, and perhaps you might have seen something different being in the stadium last week as well, where do you see the little things, the small areas that Rangers can really gain an advantage and sort of take charge of the tie?
Yeah, I think as Ross touched on there, defensively, I don't think they looked particularly solid. I think every time we went forward, you could kind of see there was a real nervousness in our play. And we've been there. You've seen us at times when we look nervous against some of the dross and some of the hammer throwers domestically. If we look nervous, we just naturally invite pressure. I mean, if you look at that Aberdeen game at Ibrox, Michael Beale's last game. Was it Michael Beale's last game? I hope it was. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? You know what I mean? We had much better players, but it was almost a case of you could just see we just didn't look confident, and everything looked like an effort. Everything looked really difficult. Now, if we can get these under the rack tomorrow, and as I say, get that early goal, you just never know in terms of what can happen. How much pressure can we put them under? How much can the Ibrox crowd, if Otamendi's having an Otamendi, then can we get him put on his arse? I remember Morella's ragdolled him. Did he get sent off when we played them last time?
I think he
did, yeah. So I think if we can get in his head and, as you say, get him rattled, it's just probably a pity that we haven't got that natural right-hand side winger type to kind of get at him. I think Cantwell would have been a dream tomorrow coming up against them. But again, that might be one for later. I think for us, in terms of they're two centre-halves, they're not ball-playing centre-half. They were looking to try and get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. As I think Ross touched on there, they do attack at pace. So you can see as soon as they see a potential gap, it's boom, away. Their pitch was massive last week as well. I don't know whether it was just because of sometimes where you are in the stadium can dictate the size of the pitch, but they just looked as if they just used the pitch to their advantage massively. They were really spreading us and getting us wide. And when you've got a tired squad, which we had in that last 20 minutes, you could see them just pinging it about. It wasn't until we maybe brought Roof on, and Roof who gave us the kind of physical option up top and the clever option up top, I would say as well. His movement was fantastic. Didn't always come off for him, but one thing we know about Kamar Roof, when he is on the pitch, he gives it his all. And he might be a little outside shout for a little start tomorrow. He does love a Thursday night, so I know we'll get to prediction teams in a minute. But yeah, and he does love a battle as well. So him up against Otamendi might be the answer. But no, I don't think let's have it right as well. These are a good side. I don't know about everyone else. I'm kind of seeing this, and you shouldn't really say this as a Rangers fan probably, but I kind of see this as a bit of a free hit. Do you know what I mean? I think all eyes are on the league this year. We know that. So going into tomorrow, I'm looking forward to going. Whereas normally when I'm going to the game, I'm dreading it, and I'm like, just hope we win, just hope we win. Whereas tomorrow, I'm thinking, right, let's have a go and see how we do. So yeah, let's do it.
I'd have to agree with that. I think I view tomorrow more as more of a free hit than I would normally view a European tie. I think we set it up well. I think we've got ourselves in a really positive position, but that doesn't. I'm not going to fall apart if we get beat tomorrow night. I think the focus for me has to be on the league, and we're in a good place in the Scottish Cup as well. So I think those are the focuses, and the European stuff. European stuff's the fun stuff, right? It's where we've all got our own memories of Seville, and we'll come on to talk about some of those games and how the Ibrox atmosphere kind of impacted some of the teams that we played against there. But we've all got our own memories of that, and that was the fun times. Those are the times that you remember who you were there with and where you were when moments happened, etc. But the league and the Scottish Cup are the bread and butter. So I'm very much of the same opinion as you, JB, in terms of enjoying tomorrow night and seeing that we've got a realistic chance, but also remembering they're a very good side in their own right. So it'll be looking forward to a good game on that front. Final bit from Philippe Clement's press conference. Ross, come to you on this one. I am a realistic guy who puts the standards high. I got a 2-2 draw in Madrid with Club Brugge, and we should have won. This Rangers team is better, and I really believe in the group we have here. How much... I found it really interesting that he said that this Rangers team is better than that Club Brugge team who went to the Bernabeu and drew 2 each, because actually that Club Brugge team was the best team they've had in however many years. It was really recognised around Europe for how good they were and how good their attacking football was as well. How much belief as a fan do you have in this team, this squad, and this manager at this moment in time?
Well, first of all, I'd touch on the manager first in terms of the press conferences. He always knows what to say, doesn't he? He always seems to have a line every single press conference that people react to, and it's always positive. And I think he knows exactly what he's doing there. Whether he believes it or not, he is encouraging his squad. He is saying, look, you guys are better than any squad I've had before, and you're capable of going out and getting a result tomorrow night. So I think he's cute there, the manager. He knows what he's doing. He's obviously using the press conference and the media in a way to get an advantage and to boost the morale of his squad. And I'm never going to go against the manager for that. I like to see that. In terms of this squad itself, in terms of the belief I have in it, I have a lot of belief since Philippe Clement came in, and I think that we always do this comparison at the moment, don't we, in terms of comparing with what the mood of the fans was at the beginning of the season under Michael Beale to Philippe Clement. The stark difference is unbelievable, really, considering what he's came into, what he's been able to bring to this squad. A lot of the same players that a lot of the fans had completely written off, let's be honest. He's starting to get a real tune out of all of them. I mean, look at John Lundstrom, right? Under Michael Beale, again, I think most people felt this guy is just, he's no got it, doesn't want to be here. He's only got a year left in his contract. Now everyone's screaming about him. He's got to get a new contract. He's the best player we've had under Philippe Clement. So I think he epitomises it for me. In terms of belief in the whole squad, yeah, it's always there. I always have belief in guys like James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, and I know there's always arguments against these guys in terms of not winning enough trophies when it comes to domestic, but European football, their record is ridiculous. I mean, Rangers' record over the last 3, 4, 5 years in Europe is really ridiculous, to be honest with you, based on Rangers' historical record in these competitions. So I have belief in any European competition that Rangers can do something. I know that Champions League campaign wasn't great, right? But it was the first time we got back there, and I think maybe people didn't realise the difference in the level once you get back there. Of course, the club, that's what we want to be striving for. You want to be in there every single year. But in terms of the Europa League, we've been there, we've done that. I have a lot of belief in this squad that they can go and do it. And you got to remember as well, there's a lot of new players in there. You know, even this season, like Fabio Silva's Mohamed Diomande going over to Portugal last week. They didn't look out of place at all. Strolled it. So yeah, I've got belief.
Strolled it is maybe a bit. Strolled it is maybe a bit bold.
No, I think no. Honestly, I think Diomande and I thought Silva had clearly had a point to prove going back to Portugal last week. I thought he was really, really good on that left-hand side. And Diomande, for me, you can see that why we've invested so much money into him, because he has came into this squad, into this team, and he does not look out of place at all. In fact, he's one of the first names on everyone's team sheet right now. I don't think anyone would have thought that when he was signing in January, considering most people were saying we didn't need a midfielder. So I think that shows you how well the two of them have done. And I think there's plenty of players within the squad that when they play in this competition don't look out of place. Of course, there's a few that do look out of place, but I think the majority of them have performed really, really well in the Europa League, and that gives me a lot of confidence. And yeah, belief is definitely there for tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. I'm not sure I would have said that they strolled it, but Diomande's been so impressive for me since he's come in.
2-2 in Benfica away from home. Come on, if you can't be positive about that, what we're going to be positive about, Craig?
I was wholly positive about it, and actually I was a wee bit annoyed that we didn't win 2-1, but at the same time...
There we go.
At the same time, I think the performance, you can't fault anyone in that performance from last week. But you mentioned some of the stats, I guess, about Rangers and how we've performed in the last few years. Actually, if you look back at the last 7 years, so taking back to start of 2016-17, in terms of home matches, only 24 wins from 34 matches, so 70% win rate, with only 3 losses in those 7 years, which is quite incredible when you think of some of the teams that we've come up against. I was trying to remember off the top of my head who the 3 losses were. I think it was Slavia Prague, Leverkusen, and someone else. I can't remember who the third one was. We're unbeaten at home in the 5 European matches so far this season. JB, it's come up quite a few times already in this podcast. I think it always comes up when Rangers are in Europe. But what about the intangibles? And I guess by the intangibles, I mean the atmosphere at Ibrox on European nights. We all felt it in that run to Seville. That was a magical experience being in the stadium for all of those games. I think none more so than the RB Leipzig semi-final game. How do you, as a fan, as a player, how do you bring into consideration those intangibles and how big a difference they can make?
I don't think it's a little bit like when you're trying to explain to a football fan why you love football. It's unexplainable. It's one of them things that just, it either happens or it doesn't. And we're very fortunate in the fact that our fan base and our stadium do create that. Do you know what I mean? We've all probably been, and probably a lot of the listeners as well, have probably been to different games around the world, whether it be the Bernabeu, Nou Camp. I've been fortunate to do most of the big grounds in England. And literally, you can name on one hand how many stadiums get going like Ibrox. Do you know, like it's absolutely rocking. I think one of you touched on it earlier in terms of that Leipzig game. The stadium was absolutely rocking. Came out of the game shattered because it just basically just drained you of anything that you have. No one could speak for about 2 days. And we've got the back cam as well. So as long as the back cam's there, then we've always got a chance. I just think it's a mix, because I think it gives you your players that extra 5-10%, but the other team, they know if they make a mistake, if a Rangers player puts a good tackle in, if a Rangers player puts a good cross, creates a good chance, keeper makes a good save, we get a corner, free kick around the edge of the box, there's just that big anticipation, and that naturally is going to put a nervousness into the opposition. We've seen players crumble. We've seen Rangers players crumble under the Ibrox crowd. So imagine being on the opposition of that, going, you know what, if I make a mistake here, I've got 50,000 people absolutely roaring down me to encourage that mistake. So we've seen some great players be sent off at Ibrox as well, in terms of, I remember young Cannavaro for Parma, was that 99? He was Cannavaro, wasn't it? He was meant to be the next best thing, and then bang, he was sent off. I think it was the first half, just before Vidmar scored. And so it's almost a case of big players, doesn't matter how experienced you are, they can lose the place. And I think that's what we've got to hope for tomorrow. If we can get in and about these tomorrow, force errors, and the fans are up for it. I just hope the early kickoff doesn't dampen things just a touch. because I think everybody there tomorrow will probably be rushing to get there, unless you've took a day off. Then everybody's probably going straight from work or straight from the house if you work from home or whatever. There will naturally be people who've booked the day off. But people will just be leaving work probably half an hour earlier, working through dinners and all sorts. So I hope that doesn't have an impact. People have got a bit of time to get a couple of pints down them before they get in.
Ross, just on the atmosphere, I think it's been mentioned by a few players. John Souttar was one I seem to remember, about really, even in domestic games, how big a difference that can make when the crowd is really behind the team. It's quite amazing that something like that can just make that slight bit of difference that can just tip you over the edge.
Yeah, definitely. And it was John Souttar. I remember him talking about that and talking about the Ibrox atmosphere. I think it was after the 3-0 Old Firm one at the end of last season, where he was talking about how, you know, positive the fans were and they made the difference on the day. And I think they're both sides of this, right? Philippe Clement talks about the synergy. I think the crowd are going to give it everything they've got tomorrow. And I think the players have to use that to their advantage. I think they have to be on the front foot from the front whistle. I don't think they need to go and press high and leave loads of gaps in behind, but they just need to be tenacious. Think of it, all the start of those games in the Europa League. There was maybe a tackle in the first 2 minutes that the crowd got up for. They just need to be right on them. They need to be, really using that advantage. And I think there was at times I hate to go back to it, but under Michael Beale, beginning of this season with the Old Firm, the atmosphere was so good that day, and Rangers played really tentative. They sat back, and you've got to use the crowd. You really do in these games, because it just gives you that wee bit extra. So I'm looking to see that tomorrow night. I think what you've asked there in terms of how important it is, it's really important. I think the crowd have really delivered this season. I have to say that. I mean, anytime I've been in Ibrox, the vast majority of the crowd have been really, really positive in getting behind the team in it. And it's quite clear that the players do respond to that. Of course, you're going to have blips like a Motherwell and things like that, but I think the crowd they put it that way. It was a blip, and they can get back on board and get behind the team again. It's making a huge difference. And you have to give, like I said before, the credit has to go to the manager for that, because he recognised that straight away. He didn't speak about how he was going to come in, he was going to play a certain way. He didn't speak about, type of players he liked, whatever. It just came in, and the first thing he said was, we need to get the atmosphere back to what it should be at a club like this. We need to get the synergy back between the fans and the players, and he's worked on that, and I think you're going to see that tomorrow night. I do agree with what JB said there in terms of a wee bit nervous about the time of the game in terms of the atmosphere. I think that is fair. I think it maybe won't be the same intensity that you would expect the first 5-10 minutes, but I think once the game gets going, the players and the crowd realise what they're involved in. I think it will pick up, and I think it will be enough to see us through tomorrow night. I really do. I'm really confident going into this one that the crowd can make the difference.
Yeah, it seems to be a big part of the narrative this week as we go towards the game, in terms of just how much of a difference the crowd can make. Benfica are coming into this, I think their fans were pretty much saying we needed to win at home to give us the chance we needed to get through. I think they've only won once in 4 away European matches this season. They drew 0-0 away to Toulouse in the last round, I believe. So I think they seem to struggle away from home for some reason. I've not seen anyone kind of pinpoint why that is. It might well be, Ross, the point that you made earlier in terms of individuals. They've got some world-class individuals in their team, but they're just not quite a unit effectively that work together. And in European away games, that's what you need more often than not. We've seen firsthand the success you can have if you've got a team unit working together versus if you've got a team of individuals. And I guess that's maybe where some of the confidence comes from.
We've got to use that as well, Craig, don't we?
Yeah.
We've got to use that. See the pressure that Benfica are under right now in terms of their domestic football, their manager. You have to use that. You've got to recognise that this team are under pressure right now, regardless of this game. They're just under pressure in general. Go and put them under intense pressure in the first 10-15 minutes and see how they react to it. See how these players, do they really want to fight for this manager? Do they want to put in the performance they need to get through to tomorrow night with the atmosphere of Ibrox against them? I'm not sure. So go and put them under pressure straight away and see how these players respond. I bet you a lot of them have not played in an environment like this tomorrow night. You're looking at young guys like a João Neves or an Antonio Silva at centre-back, right? Angel Di Maria will be really important for them tomorrow night because he's played in every single environment. He's played at the top level for 10, 15 years, right? But young guys in that team, they're not going to have played in an environment like this tomorrow night with 50,000 people against them, really violently against them as well. So I want to see that tomorrow night. I want to see Rangers go for it. Like, put them under pressure in the first 10, 15 minutes and see how they react. We have seen better teams, in my opinion, come to Ibrox and crack. They've not been able to live with it. I think of that Borussia Dortmund team, the individuals they had in there. I mean, look, Jude Bellingham, he's at Real Madrid now. He was ridiculous that night as well, but the team in general could not deal with it. They couldn't deal with it. Mats Hummels, a seasoned veteran really at centre-back, German international, he's played at the top level for years, could not handle Alfredo Morelos. And that, of course, comes down to the player himself in Alfredo, but also came down to the atmosphere around him. They just couldn't handle it. And that's exactly what I want to see tomorrow night. You see a crack early in the first 5-10 minutes from Benfica, I think they'll crumble. I really do. I think they'll crumble in that environment. And that's what I want to see Rangers do, put the pressure on them as soon as that first whistle goes.
Yeah, JB, I think when it comes to the press, that's kind of the message I took from Philippe Clement's comments in the press conference in terms of we're not going to park the bus. I fully expect us to then, okay, we're on the front foot, we're pressing them high, we're putting them under pressure, and we're taking it from there. We're defending from the front effectively, and I guess that's where your main striker really comes into play. I think we've got two strikers, to be fair to them, both Cyril Dessers and Fabio Silva, who are willing to do the hard yards, who are willing to put in the effort and to make those challenges, put their opposition players under pressure. Fabio Silva has started the last couple of games. Where do you see the starting jersey, I guess, tomorrow night coming from in that main striker position? Is it a Cyril Dessers night, or is it more of a Fabio Silva with Dessers coming off the bench?
I honestly think it's a Kemar Roofe night.
Okay, the left field.
Yeah. I honest to God, he ran Braga ragged. Appreciate he probably just come off the back of an injury then as well. I can't remember his run up to that match, but he ran them ragged. And one thing about Kemar Roofe, I think I was going to say he's got a natural fitness, but bear with me. He seems to be able to actually work himself into the ground. I can't remember seeing Kemar Roofe too many games coming off tired. It always tends to be either a knock or a strain or something like that. But one thing he'll give you, he might give you what the Ibrox crowd need, and he might just give you that old-fashioned, giving it all, throwing himself into everything. This game could go all the way. Do you know what I mean? And bringing Dessers on for the last 30 minutes, potentially last hour, whatever it might be, if it was to go to extra time, then that could be something a bit different. They would have prepared probably for Cyril Dessers. Would they have prepared for Kemar Roofe? Who knows? I don't know. One thing's for certain, if a chance was going to break, we mightn't get many chances tomorrow. We might get 2 or 3 chances. I know we will probably all agree who we want them 2 or 3 chances to probably fall to. I just think he could just be a bit of a wild card for us. Exactly what Otamendi does not want. Appreciate that he's obviously coming back from injury, but he's always going to be coming back from injury. Do you know what I mean? We haven't got Kemar Roofe for the next 3 years, and we've got to try and get look after him. We've got to get what we can out of him while we can. So Nicholas Stubborn is on the right page anyway. I was going to try and pronounce that name and I'll double check. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a different option. It'll give us a different outlet completely. Big Dessers. I mean, I love the big guy, but tomorrow could just be a night of quality. And as I say, unfortunately, he hasn't got it in abundance. He's going to go on to do. He's going to have if you fast forward to the end of the season, he could be sitting there with three medals, potentially 4. However, he's.
I like that thinking, JB.
Yeah,
potentially 4.
Yeah, but that's me saying we're not going to win the Scottish Cup. So, so I think he's got. We're going to get value for money out of Dessers in terms of his first season, his outlet. He's probably going to finish the season on 20 goals across all competitions. And if somebody had said to you, for the money we put out, that's what you're going to get back, you probably would have took it. But that said, I just think tomorrow just needs a spark. It needs a livener. One thing it doesn't need is Dessers not being able to hold the ball up, because all that will happen there is that one thing about Ibrox, positive energy can turn to negative energy very quickly. And if he has 2 or 3 shockers in the first, then we can't get a grip of the ball. We're not going to see a lot of the ball tomorrow. If people are expecting us to go to Ibrox tomorrow and we're going to be playing silky, sexy soccer for 90 minutes, you're going to be in for a shock, because these are good players on the ball. I agree with Ross. If we can get in the heads and get them cracked, we can force mistakes. No doubt about that. But one thing we can't let this team do is get in the stride. And unfortunately, Big Cyril, he's quite good at letting centre halves play football. So yeah, I'm on the Kemar Roof train.
Silky, sexy soccer. That's what we all want to see at Ibrox every single week. Plenty of comments coming in with that view. To be honest, I hadn't even considered Kemar Roof as a potential starter. He's so far out of my mind at this moment in time that I hadn't even considered as a potential starter. Plenty of people in the comments are agreeing with you, JB, and please do, everyone, let us know who you think should be Rangers starting striker tomorrow night against Benfica. There's plenty of different opinions in there. Ross, I know you've quite liked seeing Fabio Silva come off the left-hand side at times. Do you reckon it could potentially be a main man, whether it's Roof or Dessers with Silva coming off the left?
I think Fabio Silva will be off the left again, to be honest with you. I think I was JB got a good point there about Kemar Roof. Actually, he's not. I'll be honest with you, Craig. I'm the same as you. I've not really thought about Kemar Roof starting this game. I don't think he will, just based on his injury record. But JB's right in terms of, I mean, if clean slate, everyone's fit at Rangers, Kemar Roof's probably your first choice striker, even ahead of the likes of like Danilo and things like that. You're probably going to pick Kemar Roof to play the game. So it's just so unfortunate that he has had this injury record over the last couple of years. I can see the positives for Kemar if I can. I just have a little bit of worry about the injury. And, you know, if he plays and he comes off after 15, 20 minutes, it'll flatten everyone because it's like, oh, here we go again. So I think he's more likely to be an impact sub. I would go with Cyril Dessers. I agree a lot with what JB said there in terms of him hold the ball up. He was particularly poor last week in Portugal for that. He just couldn't seem to get a hold of the ball. Maybe try and flicks in areas where he shouldn't as well. And it's like, you've got to assess the game state here. You know, your team, you need to let your team out, hold the ball for a minute. He's not that type of player, to be honest with you. I don't think he's ever going to be that type of player.
I think as well, Ross, there was a quote, I think it was from Lauren Shankland after Hearts played Morton, was that the other night on Monday night, and he got asked about what do you think his fans would think of his performance, and he said, well, I just played judo with Kirk Broadfoot for 90 minutes. Sometimes with Cyril Dessers, he almost looks for that physicality at times, and he does get into just that physical battle more than he does playing his part in the game. But I thought that comment kind of resonated for some Cyril Dessers performances from my side. But I completely agree with you in terms of he needs to perform if we're going to really make a mark in tomorrow night's game.
Yeah, I think that's right. That was a great comment from Shankland, by the way. I seen that one the other night. That was great. Just being completely honest that he didn't play very well and he was just wrestling with Kirk Broadfoot the whole time. That was good. I think when Cyril Dessers first came into Rangers, I actually thought for the size he is in terms of his physicality, he didn't use it very well. And I think that is something that Philippe Clement's definitely worked on him with in the past couple of months in terms of, you've got the stature here to compete with especially in domestic football. You've got the stature to compete with these guys. Like, use your physicality. Don't go down out of nothing. Like, you know, use your physicality, annoy them. And I think that's the way we'll probably look at it tomorrow night. Maybe Dessers is going to be more important for us tomorrow night, kind of off the ball and just being a presence in between those two centre backs. I do think he's got better at that. I mean, you even look at Hibs the other day, right? He shows his physicality when he's chasing down Jordan Abita. He does well and he wins the ball. Again, it just comes down to the final action where he cuts inside and he can't put it away. I think that's what we all get frustrated about with Cyril Dessers.
I really wish he would stop cutting back. No matter what side he's on, he cuts back onto the other one, and it's really frustrating.
It's a confidence thing, isn't it? It's a confidence thing. He wants an extra touch every single time. He knows he can't get the shot off with that strike. He wants to create the space that he's got a lot of time to put the ball away. I actually think that where Dessers is better is when he's instinctive and he doesn't really need to think about those finishes. You think of the one against, was it Ross County? I can't remember, at home where he chipped the keeper. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Where Tavernier over the top, and he's not got a lot of time to think about that. That's just instinctive. Think the keeper, even the header, the same game I think it was, or it comes off his shoulder, whatever. Again, he doesn't have time to think about it. He puts the ball away. I think that's where Dessers is better. But it's just in situations where he's got to show a wee bit of composure. He struggles with that. But in terms of the physical side, I think that's where you'll get the most out of him tomorrow. I would imagine Philippe Clement's just going to ask him, like I said before, to empty the tank, just run himself into the ground, right? See, when Rangers don't have possession of the ball, you just press those two centre-backs constantly, put them under constant pressure. When we get possession of the ball, we're going to try and play into your points. You need to hold it. You need to let us get up the park. I think that's the way we'll use them tomorrow. I agree with exactly what JB said about Kemar Roof. Better player all round than Cyril Dessers. I just think for the game tomorrow, with Roof's current injury record, I think Dessers will start. But what a player, if he is fully fit again, Kemar Roof, what a player you've got coming off the bench for the last 20 minutes. You've seen it in Betis earlier this season. Comes off the bench and he scores a winner. He scores so many important goals for us. That gives me a lot of encouragement. But yeah, I think it will be Dessers that starts up front tomorrow night.
I think I'd have to agree with you. I think it'll be Dessers to start, Silva off the left, and then JB's just left us.
Yeah, he didn't like
that. We'll just add JB back in. I don't know what. Not sure what happened there, JB, but you're back with us now. So I think it'll be Dessers off the through the middle, Silva off the left, and then Kemar Roof, who is absolutely desperate to be on a football park and absolutely desperate to show his worth and his value. And he's the typical striker that just loves to score goals, and that can be incredibly valuable tomorrow night. JB, I'll come to you. First of all, then we'll just go on to, we've spoken about the sort of striker there. Come on to the full starting lineup prediction for the game against Benfica. Who do you think will be walking out that tunnel at 5:45?
I'm gonna go with Butland, Tav, Goldson, Suter, Yilmaz, Lundstrom, Diamandi, Lawrence, Silver off the left, Scott Wright off the right, and Roof through the middle.
Yeah, I think that's quite hard to argue. I think that's exactly the same team as I was actually going to go for. What about yourself?
No, you don't start getting on my Roof train now. You're off for 2 minutes.
Oh, Roof, sorry, I missed Roof. I was too busy thinking about the next question before I got on that. Yes,
the fact I've stuck Scott Wright in might shock a few as well.
But bin that, I don't agree with GB at all. Ross, on yourself.
Yeah, not a lot of surprises for me, to be honest with you. It'll be the same back five as usual. Butland, Tav, Goldson, Suter, and Redvan. I expected to play Lundstrom and Diamandi in midfield, and it's going to be interesting to see John Lundstrom tomorrow night because the last 2 games he has looked shattered. So fair play to him that he continues to go. We're going to need him tomorrow night. I said earlier that I'd love to see Campbell start if he's fit. I'll be honest with you, I don't think he probably is fit enough to start the game, so I think it'll be Lawrence, Silva off the left. I think McCausland will start on the right, and there'll be Dessers up front. Again, I'm just not sure Scott Wright's got enough quality to start a game like this. And I do think if you're looking at it in a positive outlook, if Rangers have got a lead, for example, in the game, Scott Wright is someone that's quite good to bring off the bench because he will work back a lot, and once he gets possession of the ball, he can carry it long distances. So I'm trying to think maybe he's better to come off the bench. Try to be super positive about Scott Wright here because most people aren't. So I think there's a role for him tomorrow night, but I don't think he'll be starting. So yeah, no real surprises in my team, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually think Scott Wright will start tomorrow night. I struggle to see where the other options are. I'm not confident that McCausland's going to be fit enough to put in the level of effort and physicality that is needed from the start tomorrow night. So I think probably a fully fit Scott Wright is a better option than a half fit, 3/4 fit Ross McCausland. We can bring McCausland off the bench and he can offer something, but I think Scott Wright is being fully fit. Albeit I'm not his biggest fan. I think teams I'm not sure how much teams prep for Scott Wright, which is probably more of an advantage than anything else, because see, when he's got the ball at his feet and he runs at you, he can be quite intimidating. It's then his decision making at the end of that run as to what he does, but when he runs at you with the ball, that can scare quite a few teams and even just push them back a little bit. And when it's a bit of an unknown to a Benfica, for example, it might just be something that gets us a bit further up the park than we necessarily would otherwise. So I'm on board with Scott Wright from the right hand side, Silva from the left, and Dessers through the middle is the starting lineup. Ross, I'll come to you first on this one since JB got the starting lineup. First of all, Opta Stats have the tie 60-40 in Benfica's favour heading into the game tomorrow night. We've spoken a lot about the positivity we have, a lot about the positivity a lot of Rangers fans have as we head into tomorrow night. What's your score prediction?
What do Opta know? What do they know? Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of data behind that. Why they've made that prediction. I'll give them that one. Yeah, look, I think it'll be tight. I think Benfica will probably show their quality at spells, but I think Rangers should have enough. I think Rangers will win this one. I think they'll win it 2-1. I think Benfica, like I said before, have the quality to score, but I think what we touched upon throughout the podcast, I think the Ibrox atmosphere will make the difference tomorrow, and I think we will go into the quarterfinal.
Yeah, 2-1 was one of my options, so I will save mine to the end while I rethink that. Never like to have the same prediction as someone else. JB, what about yourself?
I'm going to go for 3-2 after extra time.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure my heart. I'm not sure my heart's going to take.
I'm getting me £47 worth.
I've just seen Mark G saying a clean sheet for Jack Butland. I don't think I can see us keeping a clean sheet tomorrow night. For all I think the defence in large parts has been really positive, albeit the last couple of weeks maybe faltered a little bit. I cannot see a clean sheet happening. I'm going to go for 3-1 tomorrow night in regulation time. I'm quite happy with that being my tuppence worth from my ticket for that one. But keen, JB, something you mentioned earlier, keen just before as we round off for the podcast, but keen to talk about Jack Butland and his upcoming international call-up for England. How positive is that for a player like Jack Butland and for Rangers going forward? I guess that his performances are being recognised by one of the top international teams, and he's getting a call up to an international team where he was playing well for some Premier League teams, and he wasn't even getting that call up. So how positive all round is that?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it just screams of from his perspective and his camp. It was a gamble to come to Scotland. It was probably last chance saloon, to be fair. After us, he probably wasn't getting a number one gig anywhere, unless he was maybe prepared to go down to the Championship or maybe League One or abroad. So for him to come up here and do what he's done has been absolutely fantastic, both domestically and on a European perspective. And to be fair, if you look at his competition, Pickford is world class at palming balls out to centre forwards. I can't think of one this season where he's palmed it out and it's gone. I can't think of one where Butland's palmed it out and they've scored a follow up. No doubt somebody probably put it in the comments, but he doesn't do that. He's just very clean, and his distribution with both feet has been fantastic as well. That's one thing that's probably surprised me most. And he did say when he first joined us, he's looking to show a different side of his game, and I definitely think his distribution would be part of that. It's actually been a bit iffy the last few weeks. I don't know if many people have seen it, or the camera showed it last week. He was stretching a hell of a lot in between when the balls were out of play and stuff. I think there was something, he was carrying something. He threw one out where just before they scored, actually, that led to their goal. He threw one out. There was no need to throw it. He could have just took his time, and I just hope there's potentially an underlying thing there. But his distribution's been fantastic. But even if you look at Johnston, he's nothing special. He's a good, big, physical goalkeeper, but he was playing Championship 2 seasons ago or something. And I don't rate that James Trafford at all. He had a good under-21 tournament playing against kids. And obviously with it being English, he then went for a decent price tag. So, no, I think he's, as you say, it's great for the club and great for the player.
JB are instilling the fear of God into everyone that Jack Butland might be injured at some point.
What a way to end the podcast, eh? What a way to end it.
He'll be fine. He's got an international break coming up. He won't get injured on the international break.
He'll be fine. Let's take that reassurance from JB as the right way to end the podcast. Thank you very much to both Ross and JB for joining us for tonight's edition of the TII podcast. Thank you very much to you all for listening. Thank you very much all for your comments. Please do like the video if you have enjoyed the comment. If you have enjoyed our comments, it helps us massively. And please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel as well. More people watch us. More people that do watch us don't subscribe than subscribe. So we're really keen to change that and make sure that you guys get to see all the good content that comes out from the team at TII here. So make sure you do that. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, for watching, wherever you are, and let's hope for a Rangers win tomorrow night. Until next time, goodbye.